What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Talkative. I'm your host, Jason Martinez, and we're back for episode 6. I just want to real quick say also, I hope you guys are doing well on this Tuesday afternoon. I just want to quickly talk on how big the support has been over the past few weeks and the past few episodes that have been uploaded. I want to thank each and every one of you, even if the support is small for now, since I'm slowly trying to build up and grow. As it goes with everything you're trying to start, platform, small business, it's going to be the same thing. So I just want to give a huge thanks to each and every one of you who've been listening to episodes and showing support in any way possible. It really means a lot to Talkative and to me as a whole. So appreciate it. And last week was the very first guest episode for the show, episode 5, which also I want to give a big shout out to my friend Mark Legal, who got the time to join me and have that episode done and recorded. It was a hard one because a lot of, you know, obstacles and hurdles that were in the way, but we managed to get it done and have it uploaded, and it's out in the world now. So, a pretty interesting episode and pretty fun to record because it was the first time I managed to get somebody else on the show and have a secondary voice, have a second voice to speak, and just overall talk on the topics that we decided to talk about, which were pretty interesting. So if you haven't checked that out, whenever you have the chance, check out episode 5, which is the first guest episode of the show. But we're back with episode 6, and today's topics are pretty interesting topics that I found really intriguing and also very interesting to talk about. As we have Google building their first AR headset to rival companies like Meta, Microsoft, and Apple, and the overall view of accessibility in tech and how important it really is. So, Google's AR headset, codenamed Project Iris. This is going to be huge because, as you guys know, there's been a major influence in AR and VR recently with tech companies and them implementing and investing into developing bleeding edge AR and over the top AR and VR technology, much like Metaverse, Oculus, all of the buzz behind those topics and iterations that these companies are having. Other companies, much like Google and Apple, are playing catch up to people like Meta and Microsoft, who have already been known to develop, or even Sony PlayStation to develop AR and VR headset technologies. So, Project Iris, just to give a little bit of a design view, it uses outward facing cameras to blend computer graphics with a video feed of the real world, creating a more immersive, mixed reality experience that existing AR glasses don't have currently. So, that's pretty impressive and pretty interesting to look into. A blend of computer graphics with a video feed of the real world, creating a more immersive and mixed reality experience. So, obviously, I mean, for one, I don't think all these companies who are starting developing AR and VR technology want to follow within Meta's shoes or Meta's footsteps, because Apple already confirmed that they want nothing to do with Metaverse when they develop their VR headset down the line. So I wonder what Google's intentions are going to be with these mixed reality experience and feeds of the real world and just overall immersive AR experiences and technologies. What can Google use AR for? We're not sure, but they have multiple areas they could play around in when it comes to AR and VR technology. Can gaming be one of them? I mean, obviously, when you think of AR and VR, gaming is always the first thought that comes to mind. Like, how can gaming be implemented into this new headset that Google is developing, or can this be compatible with something like Stadia? as that's Google's console portion of their company, Stadia. Could it play Stadia games through Project Iris? So all these gaming thoughts are like the primary thoughts that come to mind when you think of AR and VR headsets. But we're not sure what exactly Google's intention is to creating this AR headset, but we shall see down the line. And also, keeping on with the design, early prototypes resemble a pair of ski goggles and don't require tethered connection to an external power source. So I wonder if these AR headsets are going to be completely wireless and just Bluetooth connection required to use these headsets. And what other third-party manufacturers or other manufacturers they can be compatible with. Much like I told you, when it comes to gaming, compatibility is like a major portion when companies decide to work together and say, okay, we're going to allow some of these software and hardware implementations of this product to be compatible with some of yours. And it just allows for a bigger ecosystem and more connectivity overall. So I wonder if this headset is going to be completely wireless and compatible with other manufacturers' products or hardware and software. Headset will be powered by Google Tensor, aka Google's very own custom silicon. So much like the Pixel 6, which is Google's very first phone that is powered by their own custom chip, this headset will be powered with that same exact chip. So I make the comparison to what Apple has done with the M1 chip, bringing it from one form factor of a laptop or a computer in the MacBooks and expanding on it through the iPad, and more than likely the bigger computers, the Macs, the PC looking computers for Apple. They're obviously going to be implementing the M1 chips and all in their entire ecosystem of products. And I think Google's doing the same thing here with Google Tensor, going from the Pixel 6 to now a headset form factor. And also, this is going to be run on Android, but in the same article, there's a report saying that Google is developing a custom operating system for Project Iris. Could this be an OS exclusively tailored to how VR headsets work software-wise? Or will this custom-made OS have some features that Android has and just correlate with one another? In terms of names, we don't know that yet. We're not sure if it could be called Android VR. Could be a good name drop. Or if it's just gonna be a version of Android, but the naming, a version of Android that's compatible for the VR or AR headset, but the name is gonna stay the same. I don't mind Android VR or Android AR rather. That has a nice little ring to it. So yeah, it's gonna be powered through Google Tensor and running on Android, or if this rumored OS comes to life and is actually being developed, it's going to be running on that custom-made OS for the AR headset. Speaking of designs and just overall hardware and software implementations to this headset, the Pixel team will be working on some of the hardware pieces for the headset. Now, immediately when I wrote this down, I thought of this. Can this Project Iris headset share similar design parts or pieces that the Pixel 6 camera bump has, in the form of curved sides, rectangular shape, and just overall a long sheet of glass going down the middle? Or will it not share similar design pieces with one another? We don't know that, but as I did formulate that thought, I read it and I saw that it's uncertain if the Pixel 6 will share similar design pieces with this Project Iris AR headset. So we don't know. We don't know what importance that the Pixel team is going to bring into the hardware for this Project Iris headset, but we shall see. as all this comes into fruition. So interesting. So yeah, I mean that's Project Iris. I mean, more and more headsets that come out is, I feel like, is gonna shine light. More companies joining the conversation, joining the buzz with VR and AR is definitely gonna shine light to this entire aspect of the digital world and escaping reality and going all digital. Obviously, in a positive way, positive intentions. Because that's the dangerous thing. That's the dangerous part when it comes to augmented and virtual reality. If any of you have seen Ready Player One, I've personally never seen it, but pretty much people have been telling me, "Oh my God, the metaverse is gonna be exactly like what Ready Player One is, where we're gonna escape to this digital void, this digital realm, and just everything is gonna be through pixels, through 3D and digital figures, but through a headset. We're gonna escape and forget about the actual real world, and everything is going to be done through this virtual void. Jobs, everyday life, sleeping, relationships, um everything of that sorts, making money, investing, everything is going to be done through this VR home and this VR world. Which, by the way, I need to check that movie out and see if these comparisons are accurate. But I mean, that's the part. I mean, like I said, everything that's being developed for AR and VR, hopefully, is going to be developed with positive intent and not in a negative way, as to when people tend to forget about the actual real world that we live in, or begin to get heavily influenced and just isolate themselves completely. Which I spoke about this before in the terms of youth, the young kids of today's world and generations on in, that I think the influence and the amount of consumption that kids are gonna end up getting from Oculus and Metaverse can be very dangerous. And parents need to be very careful when it comes to regulating and how much time their kids spend on a VR headset, because that's all they're gonna want to do. Like, either they have this, tech demo or this game about going outside and flying a kite, per se, like flying kites in VR. The kid won't be able to do the actual activity in actual outdoors and actual nature, because he's so influenced and stuck up on the digital world that he's just gonna end up telling his parents that he just wants to fly kites through VR and not actually go out to a park and fly a kite like a normal human being would. So that's the dangerous part, is the heavy influence on the youth and kids of generations going forward. Tech overall, I mean, I've mentioned this in previous episodes, but I can re-elaborate on it now. That you got kids at the age of 3 and 4, toddlers, learning how to use an iPad and how to navigate OSs and UIs and go into applications at such a young age that it surprises you. I mean, it surprises me at sometimes. I see my little cousins just playing mobile games extremely well and knowing where to go when it comes to, for example, YouTube Kids, right? How, I mean, YouTube Kids is designed to be user friendly, since the end user is a kid after all. But you just get surprised of how well they can navigate these applications, much like YouTube Kids or any of these mobile games, or even YouTube, and just they know what they want to search up, what they want to watch, or what they want to listen to, and where to go immediately without you having to tell them, because that's the thing about just brains that are developing. Kids are learning more and faster, to say the least. So yeah, that's why I think tech consumption definitely needs to be regulated. And since VR and AR is going to be this big thing in the future, parents definitely need to be careful on how they regulate their kids' consumptions when it comes to this type of technology, because it could definitely isolate them from the real world, which you don't want. You don't want your kid to be stuck up on this digital realm and forget about actually going out and spending time with friends and going out to the park and, touching the ocean with their feet and stuff like that. You don't want them to forget all of that stuff, because it'll be a bad effect for them in the future down the line, because all they'll want to do is go on their VR headset and not want to experience what the real world is like. When a kid at that age, it's extremely important for them to experience that. But anyways, that's besides the point. I kind of went on a side tangent there. I mean, that's the point of Talkative. This is what we do. We have conversations for topics that come up and we find interesting and intriguing. So had to go on a little tangent there. But yeah, we shall see where this leads. I mean, in terms of the competition, Meta is 10 times just ahead of everyone else when it comes to headset technology. That can, it'll be interesting to see if Google can really play catch up and just meet the standards that Meta has been setting for AR and VR technology. But interesting enough, this isn't the only thing that Google has been working on that involves 3D and augmented factors. We have Project Starline, which is an ultra high resolution chat booth. This chat booth is going to have the ability to recreate who you're chatting with in 3D, and it's supposedly going to be ultra realistic. So think of this as Zoom and Google Meets, but just 10 times more evolved and just expanded. And there's multiple tests that were conducted and parts of this article that I found extremely interesting. And that during the eye tracking test, so obviously this is going to be a form of video communication, but implementing those augmented 3D object factors that they're going to be using for Project Iris. So during this eye tracking test that Google employees were conducting, it was found that people focused roughly 15% more on who they were talking to using Starline versus a traditional video call, which is insane. And I see it as, of how these 3D figures were seen as, because obviously when you think of holograms and 3D figures, you find it impressive about how they move so human-like, they move so realistic, that in your mind you think this is an actual person that you're talking to when you see them through the 3D model, but that it's just a 3D model. So it kind of plays a trick with your brain, really. And I feel like that's why people were able to focus more seeing these 3D models versus a traditional video call software or application, seeing a person through a webcam, because they see a human-like figure, so they carry on a conversation as if they were actually talking to someone in the flesh, in person, non-3D. So it probably felt like a normal conversation to all of these employees, because they see a human-like figure who's moving realistic, who's moving like an everyday person that's not in a 3D format. So the fact that they were able to focus more with this 3D factor versus a traditional video call says a lot about how AR plays a little bit of a mental trick in a way with a lot of human beings. So also, memory recall was nearly 30% better when asked about details of conversations, so people were able to remember almost everything from a conversation when using Starline compared to a traditional video call. And that's interesting because it goes back to what I said. It's a mental trick, it's a mental illusion, because it's like everyday conversating, but through tech, through this digital platform, with 3D and ultra realistic. I guess you want to say, I don't know if graphics would be the good word to use here, but you get my point. Where this is all just an illusion, and I feel like it's gonna be interesting to see if Project Starline comes to production in real life. If I want to FaceTime or have a traditional video call with a friend, it would be interesting to see like how different or similar compared to what I'm reading. A digital call is going to be to an actual in-person call. Will it replace actually going out in the real world and talking to someone in person? I don't think so, but can it feel similar? Most definitely. So the fact that people are able to remember nearly 30% of conversations says a lot about how really the mind works and how the mind depicts real from digital, or reality from different voids or different realms. So yeah, I mean, Project Starline seems to be extremely huge and has a lot of impact with how Google wants to implement AR technology. And speaking of which, they want to deploy Starline, or just overall day of life, which is going to be a segue to another one of my points here. They want to deploy Starline internally as a part of its post-pandemic hybrid work strategy. So, if we ever get out of this pandemic, can Starline be a new way to host multiple person meetings? Let's say that a meeting that won't be suited for actual location in a building, we could just have a digital workspace for meetings or executive meetings, whatever the case may be. Or does this mean that this is going to be a good implementation during pandemic eras and pandemic times, that it could possibly replace traditional video call applications like Zoom and Google Meets? Interesting to see. I mean, this is big stuff here that Google wants to try to shoot out, and also shoot out by 2024. They want to release Project Starline and Project Iris by 2024, which to me seems like a major stretch, because a lot of other companies have projects in mind, projects in the works, which they want to release by that similar time frame. Apple, for example, with their Apple Car, it's slated to be released by 2024, which is another thing that I think won't be ready by then, because it's a first time for the company, and I don't really think they have the right ideas or all of the technology that they need yet for their own version of a electric vehicle. But we shall see. I mean, if it does launch by 2024, it definitely will be competing with Apple's VR headset, because they also plan to launch that around the same time frame. But much like every tech product that releases in the same release window, one of them could get delayed, if not pushed back. So I feel like it's going to be one of those situations where either Google is not going to be ready to be released by 2024, or maybe production won't even start until 2024. So we shall see by then. But yeah, I mean, that's the buzz, that's the news with Google and their work with AR technology and what plans they have for the future. Big stuff. I'm interested to see how Project Starline is going to work, which, like how I mentioned, will this replace traditional Zoom meetings? Will this be a form of having multiple people meetings, or multi-person meetings with like multiple executives? Will companies have this be like a major standard? We will see. Honestly, to me, I'd rather just have traditional in-person meetings, have that social aspect, but this is good to have too in case of emergencies, or just as an overall backup. So yeah, that's Project Iris and Project Starline from Google. So that's one half of today's episodes. The second topic of today, which really this really something huge when it comes. Oh, it's going to be correlating with tech, by the way. So tech and disabilities in one is overall accessibility in tech and why it is so important within the tech world. So I was researching an article for this topic, and I found a very interesting story of comedian and writer Zach Anner, who relies heavily on tech, and as someone who has cerebral palsy, much like myself, he says his independent life is possible because of digital platforms like ride sharing apps and meal services. And there's a quote by him that states the following: tech is the most existing area because there's so much that you do around accessibility to create universal access for people. Which is true, and it's like when it comes to any tech product, accessibility features and implementations are a big need. Considering that a lot of end users are disabled. A lot of end users that use different products from different companies have a form of physical or learning disability, let's say, per se. So accessibility matters. Accessibility to me is one of those things that the tech world must have an influence in or must implement no matter what. So I found that very relatable and very interesting that this writer and comedian who has cerebral palsy really sees the big importance in accessibility. And these are some surprising facts that I found from this article. 98% of US websites aren't fully accessible, which I find crazy. But to be honest, this is extremely true. Americans with disabilities are nearly 3 times to never go online, from the PEW Research Center. 20% are less likely to own a computer, smartphone, or any tech device for that matter. So, because of the lack of accessibility, because of the lack of just overall access for people who have physical disabilities, they'd rather just not go online. They'd rather just say, you know what, I'd rather not waste my time trying to navigate this when I know that I will run into some obstacles and blockades. I'd rather just stay away from that stress, stay away from that hurdle, and not go online, which is not good because, in today's day and age, we practically do a lot of everyday life activities and a lot of everyday things happen online. Work, shopping, online shopping, um, seeing family members, meeting with family members, or having just overall meets and meetings. A lot is done on the web and internet and online nowadays. That if 20% of people who are disabled aren't even owning tech devices because they feel like their need for accessibility isn't there for some websites or for most websites, which is a very it's a very big negative, very big negative. But over time, I feel like companies begin to realize how important accessibility really is, because accessibility is what makes tech and the disabled community come together. It brings more access, it brings more inclusivity, it includes more, and it allows more in a way. People can work without having to deal with the hassles of a feature not being flexible for them, or them not being able to use a feature because of a disability blockade or disability obstacle. Accessibility really brings both of these communities together. So that's why it's an essential part of the tech world today. But big tech companies like Google, Facebook, and Apple have been playing catch up, which is a very good sight to see. Google has launched a handful of accessibility apps in recent years, including Transcribe, which provides real-time speech to text transcriptions for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, and Lookout, which helps people who are blind or low vision identify food labels, pinpoint objects in a room, and scan documents and currency. So big ups for Google there for implementing those applications or those products and services. Apple, which this feature I learned about yesterday. Apple launched a people detection feature last year, which lets blind and low vision iPhone and iPad users know how close someone is to them. So this is done through an accessibility shortcut, and it works with the measuring application. What this does, it uses visual, haptic, and audio feedback to let you know when someone's nearby, when people are near you. Once somebody reaches the distance that the accessibility shortcut sees as being like extremely close, you'll hear like this sudden beeping noise or this audio feedback that will inform people who are blind or have low vision that somebody's near them, and either they can move away or ask the person to not come in too close. So amazing feature for people who are blind and low vision and who own iPhone and iPads. Facebook has worked to improve photo descriptions for blind and visually impaired users while also rolling out automatic captions on Instagram's IGTV. I feel like automatic captions or just closed captions are a great feature accessibility wise for people who are deaf or who have low hearing overall. Closed captions definitely is a win-win for any person who has a hearing deficiency. So Facebook putting much more work into that is big for that part of the community when it comes to disabilities. So yeah, I mean this is a great sign. This shows that these companies are putting more importance into accessibility and knows how important it is for these end users, for this disabled community to work more with technology in a more flexible manner. Because it's important to include. It's important to give these people an opportunity to interact with these such tech products without having them deal with the certain hassles and hurdles that come in the way. And this right here correlates to what I just said. Advocates say it's critical for companies to hire and consult people with disabilities when creating products and services, ensure inclusivity. So, of course, this is on another great point. Hiring people that have those experiences with living with a disability and who have those perspectives can be helpful when developing accessibility products or accessibility features, because this is coming from a first point of view, and this is coming from someone that has experience or is experienced for certain disabilities. So it's important to allow these people to come in and give in their fair share, their fair word, or their fair piece of work and ideation when developing these products, because they know what it's like to live with that disability and how they can use technology to fix the certain hurdles that come along the way. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, moral of the story, accessibility brings inclusivity. Accessibility matters when it comes to tech and the disabled community, and it's something that every big tech giant needs to start implementing more of in their products, whether that's through applications, hardware pieces, or websites. It is important and it's needed. But with that being said, that will be concluding episode 6 for Talkative today. Thank you for everyone who has listened. And before I go, actually, I didn't get to state the disability fact of the episode for episode 5 because of time constraints. So I will be saying that disability fact right now to close out the episode. So thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys have a good day. Take care, and we'll see you next week for episode 7 of Talkative. So the disability fact that I had planned is the following. Disability is a global public health issue. It affects 1 in 7 people worldwide. Everybody is likely to experience a disability at some point in their life. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the disability fact for episode 6. Thank you for joining me. Hope you guys take care, and we'll see you guys for episode 7.